Hey everyone, and welcome to the Perfect Bite podcast, your fusion of food and entrepreneurship. You'll hear stories from chefs, restaurateurs, CPG brands, and more from the food and bev industry. All of them are at different points in their journeys, talking about their experiences and how they've cooked up something new. Let's dig in. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Perfect Bite podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Perkins. I really can't wait to introduce you to our guest here today. He really is a Renaissance person of all types, an artist in any way you can think possible, from the plate to the studio to your screens. Please welcome Chef Ed Porter.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to chat with you. You and I met probably about a year and a half ago when you were working on some of your experiences that we'll talk about today. I've been working on an app that you've been really excited about as well. And we had an incredible party for you down in Atlanta at Sessions Studio, which if anyone who knows the music industry knows the name Tricky Stewart, that is his studio. So we were partying in the same space that Beyonce and Justin Bieber and just a few other names like that have recorded. Yeah. Just some folks. And then, you know, they didn't realize that they had an amazing recording artist of their own just coming on in with you.
Yeah. No, it was a very, very cool experience. It really was. Surreal.
Truly surreal. So let's take it back to one of your first loves, which is food. You grew up in the Bronx in New York, correct?
Correct.
So talk to us about when you first fell in love with food. Do you remember that moment as a kid? Did you have any favorite moments?
I do. So really, for me, it was the power that the women in my family yielded when making something. This reverence that everyone had for, them. They controlled the narrative because of their talents and being able to feed people. That, for me, seeing that, I wanted that. There was such a cool thing to be able to have, to really have people gather and commune with the sense of warmness just because of what they could make. I wanted that, I was a resident cheese grater in my house for holidays, pulling on my mother's apron strings and sitting on the counter, just watching and trying to see how it was done. It was always magical to me. I felt the same way about that as I did about looking at a piece of vinyl. Like, how did it get those sounds in there? How is this even possible? It's the same feeling I felt by how do you turn these 5 ingredients into this peach cobbler? It just blew my mind.
And what were your favorite dishes during that time?
So I didn't realize how special and eclectic growing up in New York was until I left. Like, all of my family gatherings, we'd have arroz con pollo along with, Southern staples because of the people that we knew. And so this hodgepodge of cuisines, from knishes to oxtails and beef patties to, the best Italian gravy. Which, growing up in New York, you have the access to all these different cultures and the foods because of such. That was my thing. I loved all of these things. I thought they were commonplace, and they're not. They're not. Any major metropolitan area that has that conglomeration of cultures is rich. The tapestry is rich. It wasn't one thing in particular. It was all of them that really enhanced my palate at a very young age, actually.
Yeah. And your curiosity. Because you were like,
yeah, absolutely.
You're like, what's the magic? How does it work? How do you make that happen? How does it go into the vinyl? How does it go into the dish?
Yeah. I've always been the kid to, like, this is a little thing, to take the TV apart to see how it works. I was that kid. The never-ending quest for why. And I'm still that kid today. Still. Yeah.
I was going to say, that makes a lot of sense for you once folks get to hear more of your story here. You're always seeking more and you're always seeking why. So what was that aha moment that you said, I want to be a chef as a career?
I'm going to be honest. So there was a summer that's, ironically, one of my best friends growing up, his name is Jamel, but his nickname is Chef. We went and we were looking for summer jobs. That summer, I don't know how this happened and why, and divine intervention, but I get a call This is how long ago on the answer machine at the house.
Good old answering
Yeah.
machine. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And it was from Marcus Samuelsson saying he got my resume, which at that point in time was nil. There was no resume to be had. The only job that I held to that point was at the Ground Round, which predates Applebee's.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
The first eaten good
Yeah.
in the neighborhood.
Exactly. And so he asked me to come down and stage, and I didn't even know what the word stage meant.
Right.
And so I ran to the library to figure out, because it wasn't in the thesaurus that we all had. It wasn't in the dictionaries, but it wasn't in there. So I went to the library off of Dyer in the Bronx. I figured out what it is.
Yep.
And so I already agreed to it anyway. I go down and that's how it all kicked off. But to be honest, I was just trying to pay for studio time. I had no aspirations. There was no examples. There was no Food Network. When I told my friends that I was going to Manhattan to go to restaurants to cook, you gonna be out there cooking with all the girls? I'm like, there's no women here. I wish there were.
Yeah, there was less.
And the few that were there were usually in the pastry department, which is actually where I started at, which has a lot to do with how and why I do what I do. I think it's the best introduction into food for any culinarian, because usually in this industry, you're either savory or sweet, right?
Right.
Baking is a formula. It's very scientific. It's very exacting. And I approach cooking with the eyes of a baker. I have that as a foundation that most chefs don't have. They shy away from it because there's a freedom in cooking. And
Yes.
there's very much restriction in baking. But once you understand how these formulas work, then it opens up Pandora's box to all these other things you can create on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. I would say it's always those two categories, right? I always say I love to bake a lot more than cooking because it is so formulaic. You have to follow the instructions perfectly, and then you get a sweet treat at the end, and everyone's happy with that.
Absolutely.
What were your favorite things that you were baking during that time that led you to essentially go from, say, like the classical music that is baking to the jazz and the riffing and the freestyling that can be
Absolutely.
cooking? Yeah.
So the first recipe that I ever perfected was peanut butter cookies. That was kind of the aha moment of gastronomy, like the science of food, and this makes this, and the formulation of you need more molasses to make a chewier cookie.
Right.
And again, it's a lot of trial and error for me, just tearing stuff up because I didn't know, right? This was basically an experiment. This is a scientific experiment. And it was the first thing that I perfected 100% on my own. It was a euphoric moment, and I was hooked. I was addicted. This is when I started to feel a taste of that power that the women in my family had. Because I gave somebody those cookies, and they were like, oh, there's no greater feeling. I guess the parallel is being on stage. But outside of being on stage, the next thing accompanying to that is having someone truly enjoy something that you created with your hands. It's an intimate exchange, right? It's the greatest thing in the world, honestly.
And you bring them happiness and you bring them nourishment in the form of the art. And that's why it's called culinary art.
Absolutely.
So where did you go next after Marcus?
So prior to Marcus, I went to Job Corps, and I went through the culinary arts program there. And I left there with a hotel restaurant cooking certificate. And that's how I got the Ground Round gig that wouldn't let me cook at first. I was a host and a server. And then I got to be back there in the land of fryers and microwaves, which was a great experience still. I mean, I would like to say every single different position I've had in the industry has prepared me for the next. And so after that, when I get the call from Marcus, I go and I worked there for 2.5, 3 years before I went to school. Then I go to CIA.
Wonderful.
From there. And that was just because that's what everybody said I should do. And so it really came down to about halfway through the point of working at Aquavit. And so I was at Aquavit when they got 3 stars in the New York Times. So I believe it was Marcus's first couple of weeks, taking over. And so I was there for all of that. Yeah, it was pretty surreal. And again, even my mindset was still on, let's just earn this money so I can take it and run to the studio. Yeah. And it wasn't until we did a couple of Beard House dinners We were doing all these things that I just was oblivious to. It was that moment I was like, there was, again, he yielded this power over people to where I'm like, it's so fascinating. And it affected me as well. And so I was hooked. I loved the energy of the kitchen. I loved it all. And then I also had some obstacles because I was the youngest and I was the darkest in this setting. And a lot of people, just because I was, full of energy and vibrant, did not want to show me things or tell me the right things. A lot of people sabotage certain things, would tell me the wrong thing to do. And then, when Chef came to check the meats, stuff's not right. I get left holding it back. But I learned quickly. That's when I developed the skill set to deal with my eyes and just be a complete mockingbird. So I was just copying everything from afar. My goal was to get good at everything and fast. And so that's when I decided that this is what I wanted to do. So I remember asking the sous chef, can I buy a 25-pound sack of carrots and onions? And I bought them and I rolled with them on the fire train back home. And I went to Caldor and I bought like a $15 knife. Everybody had knives. I didn't have knives. And I didn't know there was different knives for different things. Then I went back to the library and I got a book on knife cutting, which still comes to this day. The overdue dues on this book has got to be insane. And by the time that the sack of carrots and onions were gone, I was pretty surgical with this one chef's knife. So I told myself how to tourne with a carrot with a 10-inch chef knife. A lot of cuts and bruises and mess ups and the whole nine, but I got really good using what I had to get the results that I wanted. And that was my first parallel to music, because that's a very hip hop approach to doing. And so those things stick with me through this day.
Talk to us more about that. Is it the level of perfectionism that you were looking for essentially with the edit? Was it finding your own style as well?
I think the through line is that hip hop was an art form that was born out of the lack of, right? They took music out of schools and all these different things. And so the new instrument became the turntable. And we're going to use an art that's already been created and take bits and pieces of them and try to assimilate them or assemble them in a new, unique way and come out with something that is good, yet different and unique from my point of view, and still yield the result. So that was the through line. This is the knife I had. And I got good enough to figure out how to make do with what I had. And that serves me well throughout my career. That was probably the best foundational task that I put myself through, because you can't tell me it's not possible. If you want it to be, you'll figure out a way to make it.
Yeah. And you weren't handed anything. You went out
Nothing.
and figured it out yourself, which is awesome. And that's very entrepreneurial of you as well.
Yeah.
People don't hand you a handbook for that.
Yeah. And I can't speak to any other industries, but the service industry is one of those that there's no guide, there's no typical trajectory, right? So how do you go from being a really good cook to a chef? Right. In most industries, you do these things and then the next natural progression is this.
Yes.
Well, that's not the case. It's not the case at all. And so there's a skill set that comes with the next levels of things that either you get and grasp when it's in you or you're not. And there's so many different archetypes in the industry that suit different aspects of the industry. Some people's aspiration is never to be the executive chef because of what it comes with. And then there's people's, again, with the internet and, Food Network, the glamorization of the industry, and kids see it and they think they're going to go to school and they're going to graduate and then it makes them a chef. And that's not at all how it goes, at all. I remember the first day that I got a chef coat was like, it's a big deal. It used to be a big deal. And so those things are earned. Those are not given. Nobody's given anything to you. Either you're good enough or you're not. If you were on a line in any of these restaurants in Midtown Manhattan or in the financial district or all these, you were the best. You were one of the
Yes.
best in the city. And so that's just what it was.
It's a medal of honor. And especially New York being one of the top food capitals of the world. And
Yeah,
like you said, you don't earn that. I mean, this is not to shame anyone who's putting themselves out there on social and learning and building a following that way, but it's just two totally different worlds.
absolutely. And again, everything is kind of evolved and I get it. I understand things change, but what will never go away is the art and culinary art. Now, I know it's taken a backseat for a little while, but as you see, all good things will make a resurgence. And that's what I think the socials have done more than anything else. I believe cream will always rise to the top. And
Yes.
so if you put for someone's artistry of something really, handmade and crafted versus something manufactured, they're night and day.
That comparison to you is the visuals. So how important plating is and how special it can make you feel. And, we all take pictures of our food these days.
Yeah.
It's so exciting when it looks
Right.
beautiful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you go to Culinary Institute of America, for those who don't know, the other CIA, again, one of the best that you can go to. Talk to us about what happened after that. And when was really your moment that you said, I got to go do something on my own. It's time. It's time for me to be the boss.
Yeah, so the best thing about school was being able to pull resources and the people you meet, right? So I'm still in touch with troves and troves of people that I went to school with. Like Dale Taldy, we used to play basketball together. And so he's from Chicago. Great guy. And there's numerous amounts of people like that. So those relationships and learning how to conduct yourself and pull resources, were great lessons to learn. So my natural thing is I went back to Aquavit. So I was already working at a place that people were going to school to graduate to try to work at. So
Right.
I went back to home for me. I went back home base. And I derived a plan with Marcus when I told him that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to cover as many cuisines as possible in the shortest amount of time. And when I realized is that all these chef guys know each other. They're all his friends. So he hung out with Eric Rippier and Von Roig and I mean, everybody. He had everybody in his back pocket. And so the first place that I went to work for Cafe Beulah with the famed Alexander Smalls. That was my first stint. And at the time, the executive chef there was Marvin D. Woods. That was a great experience for me because for those who don't know Alexander Smalls, he was like one of the earliest socialites in New York City. Like, so he was the quintessential people gatherer. Like everybody who's anybody came to Cafe Beulah.
Okay.
And to all of his establishments after that. Because I also worked later on at Sweet Ophelia's too in Soho with him. He had this knack, again, like the women in my family, to make people gather in a way that I've never seen before. And of course, the food was good, the decor was good, but that place exuded him. To this day, I'm still in awe how he still has that with him. And so I did my stint there, and then I did a slew of openings. And then I realized I was at a point in time, I was just a mercenary. Had knives, will travel. By this time, I had knives now. I would work 6 days a week in the restaurants, and then my seventh day, I would stage at any restaurant. And it had to be a certain caliber. So through my connections with the chefs, I would stage all over the city. And then I was a hired mercenary. So I would do events in the summers in the Hamptons. I would do parties all over. Anywhere there was stuff going on, Fashion Week, I was involved in everything. That was just my mindset. And that was how I figured I was going to gain as much experience and knowledge fast. It was either that or travel to Europe. I'm like, I can travel to Europe right here. Everything's here. That was my cure to that. I'm just such a New Yorker.
Yeah.
And it was all in my backyard. It wasn't until I got to the point to where Marcus was opening up Aquavit in Minnesota. That's how I first got to Minneapolis.
Wow.
So that was in 98. He was like, you want to go to Minneapolis? I didn't know where it was. I thought it was Indianapolis. And then he was like, no, Prince. Like, I know Prince. I still don't know where it is. That doesn't help me.
You're somewhere over
whatever.
there.
So I agreed. I was supposed to come here for 2 months. and I wound up being here for 5 years.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so we opened up Aquavit, and then I had plans to go to Lyon. I was going to go to France. And what happened is my first child was born. And so now, fine dining back then, it was a prestige thing. It was the starving artist route. You wouldn't get rich working in a fine dining restaurant. And then you could take those skill sets and lessons and parlay them into your situation. I got to a point to where I needed benefits and a paycheck now. And so I went the hotel route.
Okay.
So I got a job at the Radisson here and was working there, cushy benefits, more massagable, workable schedule, but very stable for, a cook. Did that for a while. Again, my heart and soul was in fine dining, and that's all I knew. That's really all I knew.
Yeah.
And then I wound up leaving here in 2003. All the while, I'm doing music. And so I wound up leaving. When I left Minnesota to go to the Bay Area, I left for music. I didn't leave for food. My mindset was I have enough of a base with food that I could always pick it up. My group at the time, we decided it's either New York or California. Two of the group members are from Oakland. It's way too expensive to live in New York as a starving artist. So we decided to go to the Bay. And so we had a base there and support with their parents. And I always find my way back to food. There's no way around it. Went back to a hotel there, worked at the Marriott. Again, I met great chefs, great mentors. And then I started coming up to other people as well. I've done so many different things at so many different places. When I decided that I needed to strike out on my own was the fact that I had something to say. So I believe it was Bob Dylan said, I make a record when I have something to say. There are people that want to hear that message, and I have a way to convey it in a unique way to me. I felt that way about food because of my travels at that time, and then my unique viewpoint from being a transplant a few times now. I had a voice, and I had the skill set to be able to convey that voice. That was the moment I'm like, okay, I need to strike out and do something. I didn't know what, but I knew that this was going to be the vehicle to do such. And so I coined this term at the time, bi-coastal cuisine. And everything I did was a New York approach to the bounty that is California.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first struck gold moment because that went off like gangbusters. That was a huge thing for me. And it was just the ideals that I gathered from, just how to be inclusive and use these ingredients in a way that highlights them individualistically as well as harmoniously.
Talk to us more about that. Was this a restaurant? Were you catering? What was the name of it? And how were you essentially telling people this is bi-coastal cuisine? And they're saying, what the heck is that?
Yeah, my first step out, I was the executive chef of Willie Mays Skybox Lounge. I actually got to sit with Willie Mays for like a week at his house in Atherton, just getting his story about everything there is to know about what made him who he was.
Yeah.
And I crafted this menu based on his life experiences. So I had a dish on there, Black Baron shrimp. So he played for the Birmingham Black Barons, which is a Negro League team that he played for. He loved the Gullah States foods, a lot of shrimp, a lot of crab and things of that nature. And so I tried to incorporate those things and those flavors into the foods with giving a nod to the history. So I did it with the guys under the umbrella of bi-coastal cuisine. So everything had to check these boxes. So I would throw up these attributes. So I had this big picture, like, so if it doesn't fit within these attributes, it can't be associated. And so I would draw this board up, throw up the different proteins that I wanted to utilize, and we'll see if it all makes sense. There had to be through lines, no unnecessary ingredients. And that starts with names as well as the ingredients on the plate. So everything had to make sense, and there's a reason for everything. Down to the typeface that was used on the menu, the placement, the vehicles and things that the food was served in, everything was super duper intentional. And that's also when I understood that most people will never get it. Right. Most people, it goes over their head. The typeface that I use in the menu was the most prevalent typeface from the time in Alabama, and like when they did their paper But I also knew that I was going to create for the 1% that did get it.
Yeah.
So the people that do get it, that's when you create these raving fans versus people that just enjoy things on the surface level. That level of intention, you just do it because it's the thing that you feel is the best, and that's just the way it should be. And so that's something that stuck with me to this day.
And it very much, like you said, the through line of storytelling, the typeface, the pleating, every single ingredient is a story that you were telling, which is so special.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how has that inspired the work that you're doing today?
It's the same. I didn't come to the realization until like 4 years ago that I'm just a creative storyteller.
Yeah.
My mediums happen to be food and music. Now, if I pair those two together, we have an experience. Because food and music are always paired together, but never in an intentional way. Never. Every restaurant has some faint music in the background because it gets weird when it's quiet and people don't like hearing themselves stink. And then everybody's been to an event where you get the ceremonial spanakopita or some other canapé that keeps you captive so you don't run off and go somewhere else to eat. But what if what you were hearing and what you were eating and the mood and everything was tied together to tell one singular story? And so that's how Day Zero was born. So that album was made to be the audible counterpart for the edible. And my goal was to have music bloggers blogging about food and food bloggers blogging about music because you couldn't separate the two.
Yeah.
And then it just became these moments of just creatively telling these stories with so much intention, leaving no rock unturned to make sure that every detail is the way it's supposed to be, to highlight whatever that focal point is. A lot of time, the star of the dish can get lost, right? Sometimes the star is not what you think it is. Usually in the dish, the star is the protein, right? Well, not always. So in certain dishes I make, maybe the star is the caviar that tops the tartare or whatever. Or maybe the star is the sauce. Or maybe the star is the perfect bite of all of them. And so when I approach these things with that mindset, there's this level of exuberance that I feel about it because it's that exploration toward that. And then it's the introduction to people. And that to me is the exciting thing, to introduce people to different things in different ways. And my favorite thing is to give them something that they're familiar with, but turn it on its ear.
Yeah. You light up talking about this. So let's dive in a little bit further. You released Day Zero at the end of 2023. Talk to us about what a Day Zero experience is like. What's the storytelling on the album? What kind of music can we expect? And if we were pairing that with dishes, as you have done, what would we be eating?
Yeah, so Day Zero was my ode to the 50th anniversary of hip hop. So that whole album sonically was representative of the golden era, and everything was, again, painstakingly purposeful. So sonically, instrumentation that we use, the frequencies, everything was very, 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 very intentional. And again, over most people's heads, but people that get it, get it. And so Day Zero means from scratch. It's a French word that means from scratch. So it's the from scratch experience. And so there's 12 songs because the typical fine dining experience was 12 courses at one point in time. People do not eat this way anymore. So the plan was to have, depending on where the experience was held and when it was held, because seasonality comes into play, that would determine what the dishes are and how I can convey that message, down to what it was served on, the lighting. And then there's also a visual counterpart because I filmed the whole process of making the album. And there's certain parts in the album where there's a visual that goes with that dish. So that is the Day Zero experience, is the culmination of the edible and the audible.
And that just sounds so good together. Edible and
audible. Yeah, it does. It's sexy.
So what has the response been like? And are you going to be doing more? Is there some way that we can all jump in on this?
Absolutely. So my initial goal was to do, a 12-city tour for a couple of days and do it. And I'm probably still going to do that. A moving, traveling restaurant is an incredible feat. That is not for the faint of heart. Finding a location, a proper location, you got to talk about audio and visual. And if it doesn't exist, you got to bring it in. Also, finding a location that is suitable enough to do the things as far as equipment goes, because the cost to close a restaurant down to do that is astronomical. There's some X factors there, but I'm definitely going to bring this to more cities sooner than later. It's just about finding the right situation for it. It's in the works for sure.
Well, you're also someone who's incredibly busy. So I'm just excited to see where it goes next,
Yeah.
and to get a taste myself. I can't wait for that. So let's segue into one of your other babies. Again, Renaissance person here. And I love that your personal mission of storytelling and giving love is always through each of your projects. You found your way onto the screen. You've been on Guys Grocery Games, and I first saw you, probably with millions of others, on Netflix's Pressure Cooker, which was kind of Big Brother eyes. I feel like it was like a precursor to Traders. This wasn't like the happy, campy times that you see on Great British Bake Off. You guys were cooking. It was under pressure. And there was also a level of game strategy. So talk to us about that whole experience.
Yeah, Pressure Cooker was a great experience. I would do it 100 times over again. The individuals that I met in that experience were amazing. And I did my exit interview, and that's the moment I figured out why they called it Pressure Cooker. And we developed these intense relationships in a very short amount of time because we were all we had.
Yes, alliances.
Yes, but we had these moments where it was you versus your bestie in the house. That was intense. It was an intense situation. It was a great, great, great experience for me. That was very foundational in the way that I saw how storytelling could affect people. That also kicked off this whole entire thing. So up until doing the Pressure Cooker, the musician and the chef were never in the same room at the same time. Either you knew me for food or you knew that I did music, but the only few people knew that I did both. On the show, they didn't air this, but I came up with the chorus for the song Pressure Cooker. That was the first song that I released. So I went home, I finished writing the song, recorded it, mixed it, mastered it, sent it first to my castmates. They all loved it. And then I sent it to the casting director and the producers, and they loved it. It wound up ending up on the cutting room floor, but actually when the show was coming out, and I released it midnight the same day the show came out. Somebody on the official trailer for the show took the audio off and put the song, and it went viral. And that's what forced me to okay, I'm going to put this album out.
That is so cool. And like you said, whether people realized it or not, this was your story that was on the screen. Not just saying you were one of the most captivating folks on there. And it's difficult to create food that an audience member who doesn't get to smell it, who doesn't get to taste it, just gets to experience visually. And exactly you saying, here are the ingredients and here's why I did it. What was it like to have to come up with something on the fly like that all the time?
I will say that Grocery Games prepared me for that. The Grocery Games was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. The clock is real. So 30 minutes to shop and cook with the game thrown in on top of it is not a lot of time. So I was well prepared for the game.
Yeah.
I went into the Pressure Cooker with the mindset that I was going to be 1,000,000% unapologetically myself all the time. And as long as I utilized the skill set that I believe I had, that I just wanted to be about the food. And as long as I put forth my best effort on the plate, however it shakes out, I can leave with my head held high with that. And that's what I did 100% of the time. So it was not about the game for me, the gamesmanship. It was more so about I want to do the best job I can do within the conference of whatever the game is.
What other opportunities did that open up for you?
So, there's a difference between network TV and Netflix. So Netflix is global. And so, I would get messages, I still do to this day, from people all over the world. I have to hit the translate button to read the message. And just the messages from the young kids, thanking me for how I carried myself, for showing emotion and all these different things that you don't think about people are seeing and what they're gravitating towards. Or just questions about how do they get into the industry.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt me to help anybody. I'm not a gatekeeper. I will divulge everything I know happily, because on anybody's best day, they can't do it like I do it. And I couldn't do it like they do it. most of the top restaurants in the country, except for a few, like the French Laundry that have special circumstances, they're buying food from the same sources. It's what they do with that food that makes them unique and different. So
100%.
I have no problem divulging the hows and the whys and let people do what they want with that.
Let's talk about ingredients. Let's talk about where they come from. You recently released a project that meant a lot to you from that aspect. So at the end of 2024, you released your first documentary, The Food That Fuels. This was in the San Joaquin Valley out in Central California. Talk to us about why you wanted to do this and how you got started.
Yeah. So again, this is one of those things that aligned perfectly for me. So after leaving the show, I wanted to continue with the storytelling on my terms. And so I thought I want to develop some show ideas and then just try to get them greenlit. For the last 2 years, I was kicking around this title, The Food That Fuels. So initially I was going to do a no reservations / somebody feel it-esque type of show where I traveled, I spoke to artisans no matter what medium, get their why, what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, what success looks like for them within their industry, where they're currently at and where they would want to be, and visit some places that are near and dear to them. Everything will always come back to food because everybody eats. And then I would, based on our conversations, it would all culminate into me creating a meal with loved ones in a place that's near and dear to them. And then that's the episode. I get a call from Chef Mitch, who is the executive chef of catering for University of Merced. He said he saw the show. He has some guest speakers that usually come in, and he would love to have me and maybe make a dish or two or whatever and have a speaking engagement. And I was like, yeah, that would be cool. And then the next day I sent him a message. I said, look, I have this idea for the show. And if you can get it cleared, I would love to use this as a test pilot for the show idea. They were in the process of just breaking ground on a smart farm on campus. They also had in place one of the best programs for utilizing BIPOC farmers within up to 60 miles from the UC. And then I knew, just from being involved in a few things in my past life as a food and beverage director, that the San Joaquin Valley is the breadbasket of the country. So I was like, can you put me in contact with some of these farmers and see if they will be okay with filming as well? Hands down. This makes all the sense in the world. That was around February, a year ago. And we decided to start shooting in March because that's the height of harvest and it's green and pretty. So I went out and we shot in March and then we shot in April. So we shot all of the interviews and the farming scenes. And then I did a meal utilizing foods from all these farms and that I had them attend. And it was a big deal. All the news outlets were there. It was huge for the city. When I got the footage back and we're going through to edit it, it didn't feel like a TV show episode at all. It read film. I have never made a short film in my life, never even thought about it. But again, it's the never-ending quest for why. So I'm like, well, I'm going to figure it out. So my director, Zane, at Life Interpretations, who's done anything that you see me in, he filmed it. So he was naturally my first choice to do this. And, you know, I drew out this outline of what I wanted to do and how I wanted it to be and how I wanted to look. And then we put it together. Then I also came to the realization that this was the best route to go anyway, because if I filmed these episodes of this show, the only people that would ever see it are the people that I'm pitching it to. With the short film, if it's good enough, and I enter it into film festivals, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people could view it, which would give it the fuel it needs to do what it's going to do. And so once I decided that's the route I was going, full steam ahead. So edited the film. The first screening at the UC was November 7th. I entered into about 20, 25 some odd festivals. By the 21st, I got the first couple of official selections and won 2 awards.
Wow.
And then, yeah, and so in record time. So it's been going extremely well. And so fast forward to now, we're entered into, I believe, 30 some odd festivals internationally. There have been officially selected. So there's a couple of seasons in film festivals. So like Sundance and Tribeca and all those things happen in the summertime, but they select in October. So there's a few of those that I missed that I'll catch
For this
on the
year.
next round. We've currently been selected to like 50, 60 of those already, and won, I believe, currently like 14 awards so far.
Holy moly. And I know some of those are for writing, executive producing, which you did.
Yeah, it's been incredible, the response that we've gotten for the film. Because again, it wasn't the initial intent.
Yeah.
My intent was just to highlight this area. You'd be hard pressed every day to not touch something that originated from that valley. It's very hard to do. They're responsible for an astronomical amount of output. Most chefs are not in the know of the intricacies of what goes on in that valley and how it affects everything else. That valley is very important to the global food table because a lot of export happens too, from garlic to nuts to obviously the nut milks and then the food for livestock. So 8 of the top 10 food producing regions are in that valley. That's insane.
That's insane.
Yeah.
What goal do you have with this documentary? What's your mission? And what would you want a viewer like us to really understand and learn from it at the end of the day so we can do better?
The takeaway is to start the conversation one. Even how it ended, it poses a question. And the question is one that is important for humanity, with soil degradation being a thing and droughts, and then with the aging population of the farmers, and then the next generation not really being interested in farming. Farming is not sexy, and it's very, very hard work. And
it's a real thing.
The kids are more interested in TikTok than they are into being in the fields. So go to your local farmers market, look at the farmers that are there, and then look at the next in line. Either they're not there or they're there really occupied doing something that is not in line with what it usually is. And then if the next generation in line is not going to carry on the torch, who grows the food?
Right.
It would fall in the hands of the government, right? And we don't want that. I think we got enough GMO, this and that. And the whole point of this film is to have the conversation and put things out there and to educate in a way that is not preachy, but very much, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And the fact is that we as consumers hold all the power. The number one producer of cattle for beef on the planet is McDonald's. So if you're a cattle farmer and you want to earn the highest amount of money, you're going to grow or raise your cattle to the standards of McDonald's. If we as consumers decided that we wanted a higher quality product from McDonald's, that would shift everything, because they would do it because it's about the bottom line.
Yeah.
So like, we only want organic beef from now on, grass fed and finished. We don't want none of this trickery. They would be forced to do it. Now, it would probably come at a cost for us, but because of the sheer buying power of that company, it wouldn't be as astronomical as we think. But they have the power to do that. But the power comes from the consumer first. The end user, which is us, we don't understand how much power we truly yield. Small, minute changes could shift everything as an industry, as a people, and for the farmers themselves. I digress.
You just said so much about society alone right there, which is all of our voices collectively mean so much more than thinking, oh, my vote doesn't count, my voice doesn't count. What I pick up at the grocery store or the farmer's market doesn't count. It really does, especially when we do it all together. So you actually hit a couple of questions and thoughts I had in one, which is, one, I love that you're advocating for farmers. I come from farming family myself, and I can agree. I don't have a lot of cousins that are looking to go and be corn and soybean farmers after my uncles and what my grandpa did. So it's really important that we recognize maybe it's homesteading, maybe it's different forms of farming that we can get into, because it's also nice to see people do care a little bit more about what we're putting in our bodies, where it's coming from, how it's treated. And on top of it, the folks that are doing most of this farming out there are most at risk right now. By the time this episode comes out, I don't know what new policies we'll have at hand. We have increased costs. We have some very scary policies and practices that are being proposed and implemented that really affect the food and bev and especially the farming industry as well. These folks really are the backbone of food and of America. So I'm just glad that you're doing all you can to uplift everyone. So thank you. Thank you for that. Sincerely.
Yeah. And I think the timing is, again, I didn't plan it this way. The timing is perfect for everything that's going on. The fact that this film highlights BIPOC farmers and it's an immigrant story, right?
Yeah.
Which is the story of America.
Yeah.
There's everything down to even the crops. A lot of this stuff didn't derive in this country. They're not originating here. We have to not only take care of, first and foremost, the planet in order to make
climate
sure
change
that we
as well.
yes, right. So that we could make sure that we put these practices in place to assure that we can continue to harvest the lands for years to come for our children's children, but also the people that are doing the work. And then the knowledge that they hold, this generational wealth of knowledge, if it's not carried on, it dies off with the people. Yeah. And that would be a travesty. And we can't recover from that. We really can't. And so that's why the new farming initiative is going vertically and rooftop farming, all these in urban areas and all these different things. All of it is important because we have to produce food somewhere. We have to eat, and we should be eating the most nutritious things possible to sustain life.
One more question before we get to the best and world's hardest question. What advice do you have for someone who's looking to be a multi-hyphenate entrepreneur and artist in the same sense as you? What advice do you give when it comes to facing challenges and figuring out how to monetize all those different streams?
That's a great question. I remember being a kid and the message was always stick to one thing. Just do your thing. I don't want to just do one thing. Mm-mm. Now, it just so happens that everything I do is connected in some way, but they are still different. You can do it all. There will be give and takes. So I would say to anybody who has their hands in a few different things and want to do them in an effective manner, you just have to carve out time for each one of those things to make it the thing for the moment, right? And then find a way to speak to your people. So I believe there's an audience for everyone doing everything. The trick is to find out who and where that audience resides so that you could give them what they're looking for. I believe if you do something from the heart and then have a systematic way to get that vision out, it will find a way to monetize itself. And what I mean by that is there's always going to be a need and a want for passion.
Yeah.
The opportunities to monetize that passion are going to come. That's my 1,000,000% belief. I don't start any project with the intent, this is for this amount of money. Let me just say this. I funded the food that fuels at a hip national bank. That is a horrible business model. So I do
it's
not,
a good lesson for everyone to hear.
Yeah. It's a horrible business model. However, if you do not believe in your vision and your goal and your dreams enough to fund them yourselves, no one else will. I call it the cake batter and the slice of cake people, right? So you're either one of two. You're either a person that can taste cake batter and see what the ending result is going to be, or you're a person that just needs a slice of cake. Most people are slice of cake people. They can't taste cake batter and understand what the ending result is going to be. So don't waste your time giving cake batter to a cake person. Most people need to see the finished product before they believe in it even, and to see where you're going to go. So my advice is simple. Dream and dream big, unapologetically run towards the finish line. The fastest way to kill a big dream is to tell a small-minded person. There are people that are willing and that have the foresight enough to taste that batter to know that you're on to something. All you need is a glimmer. You just need a crack in the window to make it through, and then just push forward. You can't fear failure being a trailblazer. You're going to stumble. Every single thing I've ever done, I always think I could have done it better. There's never one thing where I'm totally, completely happy with anything. I'm just not that person. That chase will always be there and always be a forever student. So you do those things. I think that I know that success is right on the other side of that.
Well, I say that you celebrate with a slice of cake today. So we ask guests on the show what their perfect bite is each time. So this can be a family recipe. This can be a taco from the beach. This could be a Michelin-starred moment you had. And it really comes down to, we all have unique taste buds and our version of what is the perfect bite. So Chef Ed Porter, what is your perfect bite?
This is a diabolical question, by the way.
Because for me, I'm like
is
take every day.
Yeah, this is a diabolical question. If I had to, and this is one of them, I have to answer it. The best thing I've ever eaten on this planet. I was in Japan. I was in Kobe, to be exact. And I was there for a month. So twice a day, every day for 30 days, I ate this. So it was a hybrid udon ramen dish. It was a outside little stand that had 10 seats. Dude served one thing and one thing only. He didn't serve water. There was no beverages. It was this bowl of soup, and it was one continuous noodle for the soup.
What?
It was pork-based broth. It had in there some gnocchi mushrooms, and I could have just drank this broth. I would have bathed it. It was so delicious. It was very unctuous and flavorful, and then there was crispy garlic in it, and then he had some bamboo shoots, but not like we know bamboo shoots, not this canned bamboo shoots. So this bamboo shoots that were marinated in a little bit of soy and some honey and some sesame seed. It was by far the best bite I've ever had in life, and I don't even know the name. It's because everything was in Japanese, and I didn't take the time. These 10 stools were 4 rows deep of people waiting for people just to get up. And so I just got in line, and he didn't ask you what you wanted to order because it was only selling one thing. So you sat in the stool and he just plopped this soup in front of you. No questions, no deviations, no modifications. This is what it is. And eat fast because there's people waiting. And so that to me, that was the single best thing I've eaten and the best non-form form of customer service I've ever experienced in my life.
I've gone to Japan with you on this story, and people will probably see on the video. I'm salivating just a little bit. That was incredible. Thank you.
Yeah.
You did it. I know it's diabolical and special. You just shared something that people are going to say, I gotta go find this now. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you just for all of the time you've taken today. Your story is incredible. I know you are such an inspiration for so many. I can't wait for this to hit people's ears and eyes, however they're taking it in, and learn something new. So as we finish up here, where can our listeners find you in terms of your projects and your social accounts?
Yeah, so on socials, I am official Ed Porter on IG, on TikTok, on YouTube, on X, also at my website, officialedporter.com. That's where you can find the blog. And yeah, I invite everyone to please subscribe. It's free. Again, it's my love letter to food and music. It comes out on Sundays at midnight Eastern Standard Time. I'm still an East Coast guy. And yeah, join the conversation. Thank you so much for the opportunity to do this.
I can't wait to see you again in person one day. Yes. And to support all of your projects. Everyone, thank you again so much for listening. Don't forget that you have to go check out everything Chef Ed Porter is doing. And this was Chef Ed Porter's Perfect Bite.
Thanks for tuning in to The Perfect Bite today. You can listen to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Thanks in advance for subscribing, rating, and reviewing. You can follow The Perfect Bite on social media @PerfectBitePod. Now go get something good to eat.